I've been looking forward to doing this review for months now. These debuted in July of 2020, and I wanted to buy both of them for my own rotation. And for whatever reason, Exquisite just didn't get any stock until now, until March of 2021. And I figured out the reason. I was expecting Seiko to just dump them like they've done with all of their previous recent releases over the past several years. But Seiko, maybe it's a strategy, maybe it's partially due to COVID, but they have just been slowly sending out these watches, just letting them trickle into the market, hitting the authorized dealers. I think it's more strategy. I think they want to enhance their brand image. They want to raise their prices and be able to justify their prices. They don't want the gray market flooded with a bunch of new stock, and they don't want authorized dealers basically getting into a bidding war for potential consumers by saying, hey, we'll undercut, we'll go this percentage off or this percentage off. So I think it's a strategy, and we're going to take a look at both of these watches. They're very similar. They're at similar prices. They are historic references from Seiko, paying homage or paying tribute to some really cool divers from decades ago. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the good. We're going to get into the bad. We're going to get into the details, and hopefully this video is helpful for those of you maybe cross-shopping each of these watches, or maybe you want to cross-shop this watch with a comparable Swiss offering. You know, you want to maximize your value for money with your purchase. I hope to give you some information here. So let's start with the design inspiration. We'll begin with the SPB143. This is paying homage to the 62 MAS that debuted in 1965. That was Seiko's first diver's watch. You guys can see it's very similar. You can definitely see the design inspiration even down to the color scheme. But what's a little known fact here is that watch, that 62 MAS from the mid-1960s, actually took inspiration from Jean Richard's Aquastar 60 that debuted 7 years previous, which is a little disappointing when you find out that this is not an original Seiko design. It's essentially an homage to a different dive watch and not an original. It's not a big deal, right? There are some watches that really, I don't know, I guess you could say cement themselves as the originators of a certain look, like the Moon watch, the Speedmaster. That watch didn't originate from Omega in terms of design, but we couldn't think of that design coming from any other brand because Omega has really made it its own. I think that's kind of taking place here with the 62 MAS, even though, the case, the layout isn't quite original, if that makes sense. Now, the 151 is paying homage to the 6105-8110 from 1970 that was produced for about 7 years. And this was the larger, more bulbous cushion shape. The 8000 was produced for 2 years from 68 to 70, but everybody loves the 8110. It's such a cool watch, no doubt. It's one of the coolest, if not the coolest, Seiko diver designs from their history. This one came after the 6159, which was really Seiko's first original design that was robust, an excellent tool diver. And that 6159 inspired the modern Marine Master that we hold in such high regard as fans of Seiko. This also came before the 6309, which was the original Seiko Turtle, the cushion case. You can see where the Turtle kind of evolved from this 6105 inspired design. So that is pretty cool. Coincidentally, the 6309, the original Turtle, kind of slimmed down, became the 7002, which eventually became the beloved SKX that all of us are so familiar with. And many of you watching this video probably have owned at one point or currently own in your watch collections. But history aside, these are two modern Prospex or professional specification versions. They're very sharp. And here's the best part. This is refreshing. They're a little bit smaller than previous Seiko releases. I know every time Seiko came out with a new design, in the past 2, 3, 4 years, the watch enthusiast community went, yes, I like it, but I just wish it was 40 millimeter or 42. Seiko has long done 44, 45 millimeter divers, and they do that very well, but it's refreshing to see a little bit smaller sizes here. So let's get into the dimensions. The SPB143 is 40.6 millimeters in overall diameter, 47.5 in lug-to-lug length, but when you count the center portion of the end link on the bracelet, it makes the effective lug-to-lug length 53 millimeter, which is fairly long. That might be too dominant for your wrist, depending on the wrist size. 13.7 in overall height, 20 millimeter lugs tapering down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. And if we look at the 151, this is actually wider in diameter at 42.5, which is kind of cool because the original 6105 was bigger than this modern 151. So that's cool. The overall lug to length is 46.3. The effective lug to lug length with that center link, if you're wearing this on the bracelet, is 50.6. So it's shorter, but squatter than the 143. Same height, same lug width, same bracelet taper. Both of the watches carry 200 meters of water resistance. Each of them have sapphire crystals, inner anti-reflective treatment. Both of them have the same movement, the same bracelet, the same clasp, the same Dia Shield hardened coating throughout the case, the crown, the bracelet, the clasp. Each one of them has drilled lugs, which I really like aesthetically, and then also for taking off the bracelet and putting it on, a rubber strap or whatever your flavor is. And here is actually my Seiko NATO, and I think we're going to do another color run in a different color here shortly. But anyways, let's continue with this. Both of the watches have the same quality of Lumibrite. And I will say it's not the best. It's not going to be, Sumo or Monster levels from a couple years ago or the latest generation. It's not going to be as good as a Tuna or a Marine Master, but it's still going to be really solid and exactly what we like to see from Seiko. Better than many other brands and very comparable to most micro brands. Both of the watches carry brushed rehots, which I like. I like better than having a fully indexed chapter ring. And then both of them have the same case back and basically identical display boxes. Let's talk about the movement. This is the 6R35, the latest generation of the 6R series, 24 joules, 21,600 beats per hour, and it does have an acceptable daily deviation window of -15 to +25 seconds per day, which isn't that good if I'm honest. It kind of reminds me of Oris, their base grade Solitas that aren't very accurate. They're around the same price or more in many instances. You will need 55 full crown revolutions to get a full wind on this movement. So that is 70 hours of power reserve. I love that. That's nearly 3 days. It's about 10 hours shorter than the Powermatic 80 modified ETAs that you can get at a similar price from the Swatch Group, from brands like Hamilton and Tissot, Certina. So I think it's appropriate for the best of the competition at the same price in regards to movement, and it's nice that it's all in-house. It's just not very tight tolerances when it comes to acceptable daily deviation. Now let's talk about differences between these two watches. They are very similar in terms of price, in terms of the segment that it fits in the watch market or possibly in your watch collection. The 143 has a bi-finished handset, which I think looks really nice. You don't really notice it just as you're looking at your wrist to gauge the time, but you get a little bit closer, especially here on the macro level. You guys can see this high level of magnification. The polishing, the brush, the bevel, that looks really sharp. I do like that. The 143 will also carry a metallic bezel insert that's circular brushed. That looks sharp. You can see engraved indexes. And that's one of the things with professional level or professional specification Seikos. The indexing, it's always all the way around to 60, which I appreciate as a watch fan. The 143 will also have better bezel action. It's quieter, it's smoother. It really just, I don't think this feels like a Seiko bezel. It feels nice. It's pretty good. It's better than the 151. And I will say the 143 has a more comfortable fit. It has a higher level of versatility, in my opinion. I know it's longer in the lug-to-lug length, but just the way this looks, it's a little less ostentatious or quirky or out there or eye-grabbing. So it flies under the radar. It is comfortable. And I do think that makes a difference. Now let's talk about the 151. This carries a polished handset. It's the exact same dimension and shape as the 143, but doesn't have that bi-finish. In fact, I think I prefer the polished handset here. For whatever reason, I think it just looks a little bit better. There's a higher level of contrast with the 151. And we also have that lovely addition of the red seconds fill there, paying tribute to that original 6-1 SPB14305 from 1970. This design is more unique, but again, it's more ostentatious. It's more out there. I think it's a more, I guess you could say, love it or hate it type aesthetic. This carries an aluminum bezel insert that feels more like a classic Seiko. This feels more like a retro watch and not a modern interpretation of a retro design, if that makes sense. So I look at these two and I like both of them. I think it's interesting to note that the 151 is slightly more expensive at retail, and I'm not sure of the reasoning there. It's going to have comparable amounts or volume of stainless steel, very comparable finishing. I mean, they're super similar, same movement, same quality of crystal, Lumibrite, all of that stuff. I would imagine that maybe Seiko thought that the 151 would just be far and away more popular, and so they wanted to get a little bit more profit out of it. I'm not sure. I think these could be the same price. I would have probably priced them both at $1,250 if it was me and not $1,200 and $1,300. But what do I know? I'm just a watch fan, a lover of Seiko. And I will say, I'm not going to bash on these Seikos. I think some of you tuned in to hear me talk about, hey, these are too expensive. The quality control is crap, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to do that. I won't, because I look at these and the quality control is good here. The alignment looks great to me. I think these are appropriate for that $1,000 price. Seiko's paid attention to their brand image, and they're starting to tighten their holds on their distributorships. When you look at Grand Seiko, they're moving upmarket as well. And so I think, maybe 5-10 years from now, we won't be griping and moaning and groaning about Seiko. We're going to say, yeah, that's a classic Seiko. That's appropriate for its price. I think these two are good examples of that. I think both of these watches can coexist in one watch collection, even though they are very similar. You might just want to buy one. And I wanted, honestly, guys, this is my own opinion, I wanted to like the 151 more. That's my bias coming through. But I got to set that aside. I think the 143 is actually a slightly better package. It's a little bit more affordable, $100 less at retail. It has a more comfortable fit. It has better bezel action. I think it has a better bezel insert material. Those engraved indexes, I think, really help. And it has fun details, right? This is paying tribute to that original 62 MAS, even though that watch didn't have, wasn't the first with its design language. It still is kind of referred to as the originator of this look that Glashütte is kind of drawing inspiration from. Other brands are too, other micro brands. So anyways, guys, I'm rambling on too much here. I wanted to like the 151 more. I think the 143 is a slightly better package. Will I be buying any of them? No, not at the moment. I was originally intending to buy both of them. But, since July of last year, when I thought I would be buying both of them, I've changed my collection philosophy and I've gone smaller in my rotation. You've got to really present me with a very compelling watch if it's going to break into my powerful rotation. And I think these are good watches, but I don't think I will be purchasing any at the moment. I'm more interested in the upcoming Naomi Uemura 80th anniversary edition that will be available for sale later on this year in July of 2021. It has a higher grade movement. It has a nicer bracelet, nicer level of finish, nicer dial details, but a far higher price point of $3,100, or almost, not quite, 3 times more expensive than the 151. But anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on these two Prospex watches, the 143, the 151 from Seiko. I think this is a great step in the right direction for this brand. I do think they are appropriate at the price. And if you're looking at various micro brands or watches from Longines or Oris or Monta, these I think are appropriate at what they are selling for. And if you're interested, I'm going to put my recommendation in the description of the video. Nick at Exquisite Timepieces, they're the authorized dealer that lent these both in. I'd like to thank Nick. I'd like to thank Exquisite. So all of those links will be in the description of the video. Thank you very much for watching today. And let me know if you have any questions about the 143, the 151, the upcoming anniversary editions later this year. Put a question in the comment section. Send me a private email. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.